My research project will be based on my life experiences as well as key topics from this criminology course on marginalized groups and the criminal justice system. After some self-reflection on course content, I have made some connections in regard to my personal life and past experiences. The topics from our course content that I think best resonated with my family history, childhood experiences, institutional experiences, and social and cultural differences include social inequality and the media, intersectionality, difference and privilege, representation, historical injustice, gendered inequalities, and these elements are particularly important to understanding how they work together to make up my identity and shape my life and my family's in Canada. My experiences of these differences shape my life in Canada as they contribute to my understanding and identity throughout my life. Thinking about the privilege walk exercise we completed during this course, it gave me the opportunity to situate my experiences of privilege and oppression, as well as compare them to my classmates, giving me a better understanding of their experiences and my own. This exercise provided me with a deeper insight and awareness as everyone's final results varied. But I think it would be even more interesting if we had done it in person, as we would get to see how each step was answered differently and there would be many combinations. This exercise was also a good example of intersectionality, which was a recurring topic from our course content. It allows us to explore how all the factors that make up our identity intersect and work together to shape our life experiences in regard to privilege and oppression. This relates to how we are treated by institutions and society, and it also reflects how everyone experiences things in life differently because of the combination of factors that make up our identity. My experiences of these differences shape my life in Canada as they contribute to my understanding and identity throughout my life, as well as my family's history of immigrating to Canada and setting roots here. They were faced with some historical injustices such as coarse concepts like hegemony and radicalization. Examples of this would be society creating negative stereotypes and judgments towards our culture. This made it harder for previous generations to adapt to Canadian culture and habits without losing their own cultural beliefs. This is an example of social oppression where one group's culture is discounted and the dominant culture is imposed on them. These negative stereotypes and attitudes towards them could be traced to the criminalization of race, for example, when Coupons were banned because they were declared dangerous or threatening. Were also discriminated against when it came to work and wages and not taken seriously as the other superior races, as they were opposed by societal forces that were meant to make things harder for some rather than others. These are not always intentional, but instead the way that institutions and norms were designed and continue to operate that make them work harder to achieve their goals and the life they wanted for their children and their future generations. In connection to my childhood experiences, I wasn't faced with as many challenges because of the environment I grew up in, but I still have seen and experienced some that are negative. This includes institutional challenges like during school and in connection to social and cultural differences. Throughout school, the just us concept was reflected throughout material being taught, holidays celebrated, and overall lack of representation of other cultures. In regard to the curriculum being predominantly Western culture and history, learning English and French and excluding other cultural groups, making them seem less important or somewhat irrelevant, which can make children feel insecure about their culture and feeling like they're going against societal norms and expectations. Speaking from experience, during my first couple years at elementary school, I felt somewhat awkward or embarrassed expressing my culture because of the lack of diversity and celebration during holidays that are paramount to my culture. An example of this would be Diwali, and now is celebrated at most schools but wasn't 10 to 15 years ago, and instead the focus was extremely on holidays like Thanksgiving, Easter, Christmas, making them seem much more important. Another example would be not taking cultural foods to school with me for lunch when I was younger because of the cultural differences between most in the class, not wanting to seem different from others. This resonates with course concepts of representation that the school curriculum and activities that I experienced as a child lacked. But from what I have heard recently, a lot more schools are becoming more aware and open to learning and celebrating other cultures like mine. Reflecting on my life experiences as a woman of color in society, it comes to challenges that are different from others. This connects with course concepts regarding differences and privilege and gender inequalities. Differences and privilege are something I noticed growing up, seeing people who are both less and more fortunate financially and in other ways, like health and ability, as well as seeing the difference in treatment and education to those with status or power. My experiences with gender inequality within my culture and family includes gender roles and expectations that are different from boys and girls, wanting girls to focus on household responsibilities, being respectful, and having feminine or nurturing qualities. And these are gender norms that have been established through generations and aren't expected from the boys. An example would be told to come home earlier than my brother because it's late and dangerous for girls to be out. These same dangers aren't apparent for the boys in some cultures because they are given more freedom while being extremely overprotective of the girls in the family. Lastly, reflecting on my past experiences in regard to media and representation, which were key concepts that were a part of our course content, I recall a lot of negative media and stereotypes about the South Asian community and our culture. These include portraying Indian characters as nerds or playing them in the stereotypes of arranged marriages and strict parents and elders, instead of portraying positive role models throughout the media that are more modern and for younger kids in the South Asian community. They provide them with insecurity and embarrassment rather than teaching them to be confident and proud of their culture. Another example of negative representation of our community would be the danger and gang-related violence in Surrey. With media emphasizing blame towards South Asian youth, this creates a negative stereotype and puts this narrative on all the youth in the community, even though realistically it is only a small portion and is no different from individuals from many races that are involved in crime.